Welcome to our overview of torts, which is brought to you by LA Law Institute. Torts is a topic which can be found within the area of civil law. Torts deal with private disputes and seeks compensation in an attempt to return the injured party to their previous condition before the harm occurred. A tort is an act that causes harm to another, although the harm does not have to be a physical one. While there are several types of torts, they all involve some sort of injury or damage inflicted by one party upon another. Tort liability creates an incentive to avoid harming others through carelessness or intentional wrongdoing. Successful plaintiffs receive monetary damages as compensation for harm suffered. But unlike crimes, torts are not punishable by jail time. Torts address private wrongs, while criminal law punishes offenses against society. When talking about torts, we must first discuss the basis for liability. For all torts, there are three possible bases that we need to cover. They are intentional, strict liability, and negligence. Every tort must stem from one of these theories, and some torts can even be based on more than one. Let's start with intentional. When we consider this as a basis, we are looking for three required elements. The first is a voluntary act by the defendant. An involuntary action, such as a seizure, would not meet this criteria. The second basis is intent. Intent can be divided into two groups. The first is defined as the conscious objective or desire to bring about a particular result. The other is defined as knowing with substantial certainty that something will happen. Regardless of which one you argue, they both show a desire for the act to be done. The third element we examine is causation. We ask, was the resulting harm to the plaintiff caused by the defendant's act? A good memory device for this is an all intentional torts is VIC, as in victim. Each intentional tort follows the same pattern. To help you recall everything we are discussing today, we will give you a list of torts that fall within each category at the end of this video. The next basis of liability is strict liability. Strict liability is liability without fault. This means that the defendant had an absolute duty to make their activity safe. In other words, if the defendant was participating in an activity that falls into this category, no matter how careful or prepared they were, if this activity harms the plaintiff, they will still be liable. These torts involve certain types of animals, abnormally dangerous activities, and some types of defective products. The third type of liability, and the one that is most heavily tested in torts, is negligence. Negligence is a legal concept used in tort law to determine if someone was careless or failed to take reasonable precautions, and as a result, caused harm or damage to another person. It is a lack of proper attention or care that leads to accidents or harm to others that can lead to a claim of negligence. Negligence can be its own tort as well as the basis of liability for other torts. A case of negligence occurs when someone owes a duty of care to someone, then they breach that duty and that breach is the cause of the plaintiff's harm which has caused damages. It should be noted that negligence may be found as a basis of other torts such as defamation, product liability and negligent supervision. Finally, just as each tort has a basis of liability, each may also have valid defenses, which is always important to consider in your studies. Defense may include self-defense, legal authority or consent. This is not an inclusive list. To help you identify which torts have more than one basis of liability, here's a list. So there you have it. A brief overview of torts. We hope this helps with your studies.